Hello guys and welcome back to the hybrid model. It's good to be back on camera. It's been a while. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about how I lost my desire to work on my thesis and complete it back in November 2022. What contributed to that whole deal and what I did to resolve it and get back on the horse so I could kickstart the desire and willingness to work on my PhD and complete it, submit it, and get that hellish nightmare out of my life. Yes, I do consider my thesis a nightmare, and if you've ever done a PhD, you know what I mean. If you haven't, believe me, it's hell. It's nightmare. That's all I have to say about that. So let's kick this off with a little trip down memory lane. So I'm going to take you back to the beginning of 2022. And I was over the moon because final year had begun. Well, not final year, but the penultimate year before my final year had begun. I'd done all the research, gathered all that, the results, good results, positive results that proved my hypothesis to be true. And I started working on my PhD thesis basically, and that's all I was doing pretty much 2022. And I was motivated, driven. In my mind, I was going to be done by the time we finished 2022, submit this bad boy before Christmas, and be done with it. Celebrate Christmas. Knowing that I've submitted my PhD and it's no longer a thing in my life. Little did I know that those were the foolish notions of a child. If only I knew what I knew. If only I knew what I know now, I would never have made such pompous predictions, if you will. But you live and you learn. It is what it is. So, like I said, yeah, I was powering through the PhD, and for the first half of 2022, things were going well. I was making a lot of good progress, which was also reinforced by my supervisors who also confirmed that I was doing a lot of progress. So it's not like I was just making it up in my mind that I'm making progress here. It was reinforced by people far more knowledgeable in the PhD space than me. However, around August, September time, I started to get more frustrated because I felt like certain chapters I was working on were taking longer than they should, because more and more stuff needed to be added, explained, whatnot. A lot of academic, what do you call it? Academic writing rules, but you're bullshit if you ask me. But whatever. So I started getting frustrated with that, and that definitely contributed a lot to what was the trigger that led to my burnout in November 2022, because it hit me like a ton of bricks and I essentially just burnt out, and I pretty much just lost all the desire or the willingness to even touch my PhD, even look at it. And sorry, my thesis, not my PhD, my thesis. And this wasn't great because like a week before this whole thing kicked off, I had a meeting with my supervisors where they informed me that I was 20% away from finishing this thing, and so it was kind of inconvenient to be losing the desire so close to the end, as it were. It's the equivalent of in an Olympic race, you've been running, I don't know, 10 miles, and you're pretty much on the bend entering the last 200 meters to get to the finishing line, and then one of your muscles cramps up and you just seize up and you can't run, you just collapse to the side of the track. That's the equivalent, I guess, is an analogy, if you will. With that being said, I believe that the first reason that pretty much led to my burnout was the fact that when I was writing the thesis, I was setting unrealistic deadlines for myself, because only I can set deadlines essentially, because the university or my supervisors only tell me the one deadline, which is the submission deadline basically. And then other than that, the rest of the deadlines that are kind of intervals, I had to set them myself. So I was setting deadlines where I was expecting to complete an entire chapter within 2 to 4 weeks, and that was wildly, ridiculously, in fact, stupidly unrealistic. And the reason for that is because, on average, a chapter in a thesis is roughly about 20 pages, give or take. Could be more, could be less, but we'll say 20. That's usually the average for each chapter, and there's at least what, about 7 major chapters. So 7 times 20, 140, bare minimum, right? In most PhD thesis documents, papers, whatever you want to call them, are at least 200 pages long on average. So so you can imagine how setting a deadline to write a 20-page chapter in 2 to 4 weeks was unrealistic. Now you're probably thinking, well, actually you can write 20 pages within 2 to 4 weeks, as in you can put words on paper worth 20 pages within that 2 to 4 week timeline. So, what's the big deal? Well, my good friends, when it comes to writing a thesis, it's not just about writing about what you've done, essentially, because you're writing about what you've done, right, in your research. But it's not just about writing what you've done. The academic community, for you to pass, for them to say your thesis is worth it, your research was novel, good, quality, blah, blah, blah. Insert positive nonsense here. You have to, how do I put this? So when you're writing what you've done, when you're saying I did this, or claiming something, or saying I use these tools, whatever it may be, I use this strategy or that technique, you have to justify it. And you have to give a reason why you use that. And the reason is twofold. So you have to provide a reason which you can come up with yourself, right? Because you definitely have a reason for it, for why you did what you did. But you also have to reinforce that reason with backing from appropriate references from other researchers who've done either a similar thing, used the same technique, the same strategy, the same tools for something similar-ish or in the same space, essentially. And also back it up with what they've said about that tool within the respect of what they used it for, which is in the same similar space to your research, basically. So that's where most of the time is spent. It's not spent thinking about how to write and put the words on paper in a manner that makes sense. Most of the time is spent finding the appropriate references, the appropriate quotes, if you will, and citations to go along with your claims, justifications, etc. And that's the thing that slows the whole process down. So you can now imagine that for a 20-page chapter, if you have to cite pretty much damn near everything you put down on paper, right, to an incredible degree, and you have to go and find these citations as you write, you can now see how you're not really going to write a 20-page chapter in 2 to 4 weeks, at least not successfully. It won't be good enough. So that's that's the thing about the whole deadline setting. It didn't help, and it sort of leads into the second reason, which is the constant need to cite everything, justify everything, find the appropriate references, read numerous papers, publications, etc. as you're constructing this thesis. This stuff takes a toll on you guys. I mean, it just takes a toll on you, and it definitely got annoying, frustrating, and definitely, at some point I was just like, I'm done with this. I don't care anymore. Every time I claim something, or I say, oh, I used this tool and got these results, it's like, okay, why did you use that tool? And are your results actually that good? How can you prove they're good with other backing from someone else who's used the similar tool and also got positive results. Like, yeah, it was annoying. And as you can tell, actually not even happy speaking about this, because I was in a very negative mindset by the time I got to November, basically, because I was like, everything must be cited. Jesus Christ. Can't I just say I did it and you believe me? Which, I'm saying it back sounds silly, because why would the examiners believe that I'm telling the truth without the backing of other research to prove that I've done the necessary literature review, blah, 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 academic rules. Anyway, now, even though I'm still writing my thesis, kind of wrapping up, well, I shouldn't even say wrapping up, kind of working through the evaluation chapter as it stands, which is just another mess, but that's a video for another time. I've found a new respect for authors, like authors of novels and books and whatnot. And the reason for that is because authors have to go through the same process. Now, granted, they're not trying to prove a hypothesis for PhD research, but they do have to do a lot of research for the concepts, ideas, and notions, I guess I'll call them. They're trying to put into their book. And sometimes, like for example, if an author is writing a book where there's a crime scene investigation or something, they might have to spend months just researching, or even going to their local police department to get more insight into what a crime scene investigation looks like, what goes on, both in the public eye and behind closed doors, what's happening and stuff. They might even ask to be to shadow one of the detectives or whatever. I think that's actually allowed, yeah, and get that kind of insight. That takes months, right? And then they can then put that stuff to paper in a manner that makes sense for their book, their readership, in the in the plot they're trying to push forward. And so you can imagine that writing a book takes a few years, doesn't it? And so writing a thesis is taking me a good year and a bit. So because I'm going to be submitting it in March. So yeah, I have a newfound respect for authors because of that. So yeah, shout out to guys like James Patterson, I think that's his name. Yeah. Now, as I said earlier in the video, my submission date for my thesis is in March 2023. So that's next month as I'm recording this. So to have a shot of meeting that deadline, because I've known about this deadline since like October 2023. So it's not like news to me. And in November 2022, I knew about this, this deadline. And to have a shot of meeting it and submitting and completing my thesis really well, I had to change the strategy I was using for setting deadlines, because there's nothing else I could change. The citations, the referencing, justifications, that's all going to be staying. And the only thing I could control was the deadlines I'm setting for myself and what I'm trying to achieve with those deadlines. And so to make sure that I gained the appropriate momentum to work on the thesis and actually make decent progress, I took inspiration from something Jordan Peterson said to his students in one of his lectures that are on YouTube. At least I think it's still on YouTube. I'm not so sure, given all the controversy around that guy, but I'm going to paraphrase it. He said something to the effect of, if you want to achieve something bigger, you need to set achievable goals for small achievable tasks with achievable goals. And then by achieving those small tasks, you build it up to something bigger. Something to that effect. In fact, I'm going to insert the video of that clip here. I found the Jordan Peterson clip I referenced, but the clip is longer than I expected. So Yeah, I've left a link in the description so you guys can go check it out for yourself. It's about 10 minutes long in total, to get the full context, of course. So I set myself a simple goal, and that was that I would write and finish a good paragraph once, like per night, basically. So one good paragraph per night. And you're probably wondering why one good paragraph per night when you have the entire day. And the reason for that is because I'm studying this PhD part time. So during the day, at least during the week, Monday to Friday, I'm at work. And so it's only between about 8:30 and 11:30 when I have time to actually work on my PhD. So yeah, you know, so I have what, 2-3 hours to do some damage to this thesis. So because of that, yeah, one good paragraph with the citations, the references, justifications, everything else per night, and that was my goal. If I ended up doing more, that would be even better. But as a baseline, it's for me to be happy. The idea was to just write one good paragraph per night and just know that that's progress. And fast forwarding to now, basically in February 2023, I have to say that that strategy worked really well. And yeah, I'm in a way better position than I was back in November 2022, because I'm mentally in a better position. I'm not as frustrated or annoyed, and I'm not going to say I have a lot of motivation because that would be lying. But the discipline is back in place, and the momentum is definitely there to, chug along and complete this thing. And now that I'm working on my evaluation, it's even better, because when this all happened, I was working on like the experimentation section of my thesis, and that was a big chapter. That was a massive chapter. So yeah, but yeah, I'm in the evaluation chapter now, trying to wrap that up in the next few weeks, and then make whatever suggested changes the supervisors come up with, and hopefully submit this thing by end of March 2023. That's it for this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Now, before I head off, I just want to say to my fellow PhD students out there, part-time or full-time, doesn't really matter when it comes to your thesis. The nightmare is still the same. If you are struggling with your thesis in any way and kind of going through and you are going through burnout and whatnot, I urge you to use a similar strategy of setting small targets, whatever the targets are in terms of small for you. Depends on your situation, of course. Set those up and yeah, put them into action, and then yeah, you definitely gain the momentum necessary to complete your thesis and submit it within the time frame you need to. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm signing out.